For any of you wondering, the 100 subscriber special will be out on Sunday. You can also follow me on Twitter to stay updated. It all started back in my high school years. Freshman year, during the mid-semester autumn season. In second period reading class, there were 7 students. I don't remember how many, but it was a small class, until this one guy made me feel uneasy. He would just stare at me for a minute. After reading class was over and it was time for third period English, I walked to get ready and get started on my work, until I felt 2 arms wrap around me, and it was that guy. I pushed him away. After English was done, it was time for lunch. As I go to meet my friends, I see the guy leaning on the wall. He walked towards me, handing me a piece of paper, and he walked away. As I hung out with my crew, I opened the note and it says, "Will you be my girlfriend?" It had a yes and no tick box on the side. I was grossed out, so I ripped the paper up and blew it away like flower petals, and my friends laughed, so did I. After lunch, I went to go do a report of what happened. I went back to lunch, and when lunch was over I went to class. My teacher told me to go to the principal's office. I go. My principal went through the report I made. She said, "To let you know of what happened, I'm transferring him to another school." I felt so relieved he wasn't going to bother me again. 3 months later and nothing has happened and he hasn't came back. I hope he won't do that again to others. So, creepy stalker, let's not meet again. You always hear about Facebook stalkers, or stalkers that follow people to and from school. Now, I've never really experienced anything creepy or scary. However, this experience I had was one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, and it'll always be in my mind. Bit of context for you. My name is Tyler. I'm an 18-year-old male from Las Vegas, Nevada. I stand around 5'10" and am fairly skinny. This story takes place about a year ago when I was 17. I had just bought a new car and decided to take my little sister for a drive as I was babysitting her and was tired of watching those shitty kiddie channels. My mom and dad were out of town for a week, and this was the first day they were gone. I was allowed the week off school to look after my sister. We were driving through a cul-de-sac as I was showing my sister my parents' old house, when a beat-up silver Toyota Prius speeds into the cul-de-sac and misses my car by only inches. I slam my brakes on and blast my horn. The car stops dead in its tracks and the guy gets out. The guy looked roughly in his early to mid-40s. He had a grey dirty beard and a trucker cap on. I wound my window down. "What the hell are you doing, you psycho? You almost hit us," I yelled at him. The guy just stares at me. The look in his eyes gave me weird vibes, and I didn't want any problems, so I calmly said, "Next time just watch where you're going, alright buddy?" My little sister, who was only 12, was in the car, so I took off and got out of there because I didn't want any trouble when I was with my sister. The next day was a Monday and I had to take my sister to school. I dropped her off and decided to get a snack from a nearby Walmart. As I was entering the parking lot to get into my car, I seen the same Toyota Prius that I had the problem with the day prior. At first glance, I just seen it as another car, but with it being a silver Prius, it caught my eye. I stared at the car and seen the guy in the back seat peeking over looking at me. I got spooked the fuck out and darted in my car. I kept my eyes on the dude though, and as I got in my car and turned the ignition on, I seen him taking a photo of me. I knew this because I seen the flash. I had a real unnerving feeling about him and peeled off. I arrived home, and with sweat dripping from my forehead, and feeling rather unsettled, I decided to watch some TV and take my mind off it. Later that day I went to pick my sister up from school, and when I got there she came out with a friend, asking if she could stay the night at her friend's house. They didn't have school the next day for a reason I can't remember, so I rang my mom and dad to confirm and they said it was okay. So that night, since I had the house to myself and I was off school for a week, I called my friend and asked him to stay the night. He said he would and came round about 5 PM. When he got to my house, he mentioned he'd seen a silver Prius driving slowly through my street and said the guy looked super sketchy. My heart skipped a beat and my face went white. At this point I knew this was serious. I told him about the situation and he looked at me confused. And then my phone rang, and as you probably guessed, it was an unknown number. So at first I just ignored it. Me and my friend locked all the doors and ran up to my bedroom. We peered out of my bedroom window and saw the car parked up close by, but there was no one in the car. For a second I thought the guy must have lived in my street, but then figured he couldn't because I knew everyone in my street. I got a text from the unknown number saying, "I'm in your street." "Who is this?" I replied. "The guy who was following," he said. "Fuck off and leave me alone, dude. I don't want a problem," I text back. "You've already got one." At this point me and my friend Dylan were both glued to my phone, but decided to check the window again. The car was gone. I blocked the number and we decided to leave it and play some Xbox. We fell asleep around 1 AM and I was waking up to banging on the door. I instantly called the cops because I just had that feeling where I knew who it was. The banging went on and at this point Dylan had woke up. "I've shed blood and I will again," I could hear the man say from outside. Within a couple of minutes I heard the police sirens and the cops knocked at my door and they took a look at my backyard. He was gone, nowhere to be seen, and the cop said to ring back if he came back. We stayed up all night and the next day at around 10 AM Dylan went home. As Dylan left, I shut the door behind him and seen a note that had been posted through my letterbox. It had my full name, school, and pretty much all my details, and underneath read, "I am watching your every move, and watched you and your little buddy last night. Chances are I'm watching you now." I dialed 911 and got the police round yet again. They took the note and put a notice around my area. This is where the story takes a turn for the worst. Later that day around 4 PM, my little sister comes home and we're watching TV when I get a message off Dylan. He said he got a sketchy email saying, "I'm the watcher, I know where you live too." I told Dylan to contact the police and he did so. About 2 hours after, I got a text saying, "Your pretty little friend Dylan is with me, ha 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 ha." It was from Dylan's phone. I replied, "Yo man, that's not cool." There was no response. The next day I was awoken to my phone ringing and it was Dylan's mom. I answered. "Hello? It's Dylan's mom. Have you seen Dylan today?" "No, I spoke to him yesterday, but that's the last time I heard from him." I briefly told her about what happened and the text Dylan sent me. She said she'd call the cops and she did. A day later, Dylan was found by the police. Cuts on his body, concussion, a black eye and a broken arm. The guy had kidnapped Dylan, threw him in his basement and beat him. A couple days after that, the stalker was found by the police hanging from a tree a couple of miles down the road from his home. He had committed suicide. He left a note that said, "I'll resurrect, hunt and kill you, Tyler and Dylan." Dylan stayed housebound for a few weeks, and I was left spooked in my boots. The full situation sent chills through my body, but the worst part is the note he left. It haunts me to this day how we were the last things on his mind before he took his own life. This story came a massive surprise to me and escalated rather quickly. I had a stalker, and the worst part about it was that it was my dad. So my mom and dad split when I was only a baby. My dad was known to be violent and had serious mental health problems. I was never allowed to see him for my own safety. I didn't even know where he lived. My mom had a new boyfriend from me being 6, so I got to know him pretty well and liked him. This story happened to me when I was 19. And one cold winter's day, I was playing some PlayStation when my friend rang and asked me to come smoke a bowl with him. I said I'd pick him up and we'd go to the spot in the woods nearby where we'd usually go. Bit of background, my mom fucking despises weed, and I no longer smoke weed but did for about a year. I pick my homie up and we drive to the woods and get blazed. We get back in my car and start chatting, baked out of our brains. The music on the radio was on but I remember it being quiet. I hear a noise but my friend says it's just the radio, or me being paranoid, so I leave it. A few minutes later I hear the noise again and realise it's branches snapping. "Dude, did you hear that?" I said to him. He said something but I can't remember what exactly because I was frozen, staring into the woods. It could have been anyone, but I was high and paranoid. My friend says he can see someone behind a tree, so me being cocky and quite confrontational, I step out of my car and shout, "Who's that? Stop fucking with us." My dad comes from behind the tree. I recognise him instantly as I sometimes search him on Facebook. He starts smiling, then starts crying. He starts to walk towards me, but with pace. He's insulting my mother and saying he's going to do bad things in a nervous and unstable voice. It freaks me out and I run to my car. I skirt out of there and when I get home my mother is in the kitchen with her boyfriend. Their eyes latch onto me as soon as I walk through the door. The way they looked at me, I thought they thought I was high. But then my mom said, "Son, I don't want to scare you, and we are going to phone the cops, but read this." She hands me this big ass file with at least 100 pages of paper inside. I sit down in the living room and read through. It was everything I had been doing for the past year. What I mean by that is, for example, the first page read, "You woke up at 7:47 AM and had pancakes for breakfast. I saw you get into your car at 8:56 AM and you went to your grandmother's." And every page was a different day telling me exactly what I'd done on that day. I got to the last page and it said, "Although you don't see me, I see you. Dad." My dad, who I never spoke to, had been stalking me. He'd left this file on my front doorstep. My mom phoned the cops, but my dad wasn't thrown in jail. I found out he got thrown in a mental institution instead.